What is going on, friends? Welcome to episode number 5, I think, of the Main Gains podcast. With me is fellow strength coach and BPN ambassador, Mikey. Mikey, how are you today?
I'm doing good, thanks.
Mikey is a strength coach at the University of Cincinnati, correct?
Yep.
How long have you been there?
I started there in July, so it's been about 5 or 6 months. Um, Started there as a fellow, which was kind of like a full time position, responsibility wise, with part time pay, and then got moved to full time in November. So been full
Is,
time.
sorry, is the fellow similar to like a GA position?
Uh, Kind of in a way, I guess. For example, here they minus the school. They put me in an apartment. I was paid hourly with no benefits, 39 hours a week, something like that. So, yeah.
How did you get this position?
So, let's see. There's been a lot leading up to it, but most recently, when I was at Texas A&M for the 2021 school year, I was there as a paid intern, worked all the way through June of 2022. And then that summer, spring/summer, I was applying to jobs left and right all over the place, like UNLV, a couple of schools in like Ohio and the Midwest. And then um, my boss from Texas A&M, she put this one across my plate. She told me to apply for it because she knows the director or had maybe just met her once and talked to her, and she thought I'd be a good fit, so told me to apply and uh, interviewed, and then I got called the next day or texted the next day while I was in the middle of another interview, um, and was offered the spot. So moved up there like 2 weeks later.
Dude, that's awesome. Um, like, did you always want to go into college sports, like college strength and conditioning?
Uh, I didn't know that I wanted to until I was kind of 2 years into my private sector job, and I have nothing against the private sector, but um, right out of college, I'd done an internship in Dallas as a part of the like last semester of my program there at Texas A&M. Spent 2 years there, and a part of my responsibilities there was to be the kind of like lead performance coach with a local soccer club. And so that was my first taste of working with a team versus kind of random kids in and out every few weeks. And I just loved it. So I knew somebody down at the University of Houston and talked to her about the college setting, and then um, politely quit that job and moved to did an internship. It was a great place to work, like great people there, super smart people. I couldn't imagine starting like my career anywhere else just based on what I was able to learn there. But that kind of team setting experience led me to college, did an internship, and then I was hooked. So the team stuff's a lot of fun, and especially the college setting.
Yeah, the being in both the private and the school setting, I love there's things that you love about both. The thing that I think I resonate with most about the team setting is you get them for longer and like it's a bigger group and normally there's a little bit more energy versus in a small like private setting where you kind of have to get your own athletes. It's not necessarily you might have a small group, but it's not all from the same team. And so they are forming relationships, but it's just not the same energy as it would be with the big team that comes in all together at once.
Yeah, definitely. And
What
I've heard that before, but and I'm not hating on anybody, but there are groups of athletes and some athletes in particular that's not always true for in the college setting. And people are like, oh, you get to work with elite athletes all the time. Well, like some of them are really great at their sport, but not so much like once you take the ball off their feet or take the the cleats off. So yeah, but I agree with what you said though.
It's yeah, you bring up a good point. It's crazy how much athleticism on in their sport does not always transfer to athleticism in the weight room. And it
Mhm.
blows your mind as a coach. You're just like, how are you this good on the field when you can't even be coordinated enough to do like a single leg exercise?
Yeah, I think something like that though that I've and kind of took this from one of my bosses at Texas A&M. For example, like I have the dive team, and most of them were gymnasts, and most of them competed in sports where they're judged on like the hard technical pieces. So um, last year, one thing I picked up from this guy, his name's Bo Sandoval. He's awesome. I think you should look into some of his stuff. But he had the men's golf team. I had the women's golf team, and I talked to him about one of his big things that he follows is precision and accuracy in like movements. And he kind of broke it down with a golfer as they have so many different factors that they have to put into every shot. They have to hit the ball maybe a half inch down on the ball, or else it cuts left, doesn't get enough distance. And so if you put things that like require athletes to lock in to be a little more precise and accurate in how they execute things, that their performance and whatever you're asking them to do can go up. And so, like with dive, if we're doing repeated jumps and it's like I need you to take off every jump from the same spot or catch a snatch and stick it, like that, I feel like those little things have driven up performance in athletes like that you may not think like a diver, like God, how are they going to move in the weight room? But like if you give them little things like that, it's funny what those little things can turn into. So that's something that's been interesting.
No, that is really interesting because in sports that require such precision like that, I've never really thought about if you give them a precise thing to do in the weight room, they'll probably be more intent on like hitting and sticking that position. That's good. I
Mm-hmm.
probably steal that. What that brings me to my next question. What teams do you work with at Cincinnati?
So I'm with the swim and dive team, the sprinters and hurdlers on the track team, and then the women's lacrosse team. So it's like 90 something athletes.
Are you working with them like all year? So what is it, three sports? Are you working on consistently throughout the year? Does it like ebb and flow?
Yeah, so that's a new one, or it's going to be newer to me because, as far as I understand, I'll be here next fall, where college stops. Like I was in grad school, um, January 2020 to May of 2021, but I was a GA, so they didn't really ask me to stick around for the whole summer and winter and whatnot. But and then same thing going to A&M. But I was here most of winter break. Uh, I think I only had one team truly training though. Over the summer, like usually swim kind of doesn't stop. They have summer competitions where they move into long course season, which is like they swim 50-yard lap or 50-meter laps instead of 25-yard laps. I might have got the distances wrong on that, but like I think track will go home. Women's lacrosse might go home, but I'll still like be programming for them. If there's kids that are local and they stay in town, I'll be working with them when I can. So, um, I mean, but between the fall and spring semesters, there's a little bit of work here and there, but it's definitely not. I'm not anticipating it to be like full blown 9 to 10 hour days up at the school where I'm coaching for 5 hours
Yeah.
type of. So
When you're coaching these teams, how different are your coaching styles when it comes to training swim and dive versus training lacrosse? Like, do they differ at all based on like the vibe of the team and kind of how the athletes are responding to you?
definitely. um, so women's lacrosse. It's a team. They've got 34 girls on it, so it's a pretty big roster. I think it's the biggest one I've got. In the space that we're in, I kind of, depending on the day, but most days I'll kind of float and be real high energy with them. Especially right now while we're getting back into training off the break, where work capacity is the biggest thing we're trying to drive up, and I'm just preaching a continuous effort. Like the past 2 weeks, we've done just a huge circuit for like 30 or 40 minutes, however long it takes them to complete it, and been preaching no rest. That kind of just don't have to do it as fast as possible. It just has to be continuous work. Whereas like dive, small group, there's 6 of them. Everything's very precise until we get to like a work capacity circuit at the end. We go through like an Olympic complex where I'm not really like, and I'm not the coach that's in somebody's ear for a whole lift. But with them, small group, just kind of stand off to the side, coach some very technical things, and then just encouraging great effort. Whereas like track can be that way too because we're pretty Olympic based. But like for the swim team, it's a little more like the lacrosse team. There's about 25 kids in each group there between the men's group and then the women's group. Um, so style changes a little bit. I think if it stays the same for every team you're with, some kids are going to tune you out and be like, what is this guy doing? Like, we're doing a recovery day or a deload week. Why is he losing his mind? So it changes a little bit. Just got to kind of read the room, read the athletes, and then adjust based on who you're working with.
That yeah, you definitely as a coach, you definitely got to get good at reading the room because there are times where when I was first out, like I was like that high energy, and I'm like these kids are just not responding to that. Like I just need to chill. When
Yeah,
it when it comes to um like programming for both, like they're all very different sports, and so they need kind of different needs. So how does your programming look and differ from sport to sport?
that's funny you asked that. The other day, I was talking to one of the lacrosse girls, stuck around after the lift, and was chopping it up with me and one of the other girls after they'd grabbed their protein shake. She was like, how do you like know what to do for us?" And I'm like, well, it's kind of like watch your sport, work backwards. Like, well, in lacrosse, you're probably going to take some hits. Like, there's going to be somebody trying to take the ball from you, run you off the ball. So, like, we'll train some upper body so you can take some hits and have it not affect you as much. So, like, we'll bench, we'll do some pull ups, we'll do some shoulder work. Well, they've also got to be fast, so we'll do a lot of posterior work. We'll do some cleans. We'll do some like vertical shin style squatting. Um, you have to cut a little bit, and you're a nothing against them, a female in a field sport. So we got to do some single leg work, some ACL prevention style training, if you want to call it that. Some lateral work. Whereas like swim, a little a little bit different. Got to definitely have a strong upper body to be able to pull and push water, strong back, strong core to be able to stay healthy from all the repeated flexion and extension in their spine they go through when they're underwaters and getting their bodies on top of the water. Got to have strong legs to be able to push off the wall and get off the blocks. So different. Talk to different coaches, talk to different athletes about what they've experienced and kind of what they feel like helps them the most, and then put your knowledge to it as well, knowing what kind of qualities they need to have and what make the best athletes in those sports great, and then kind of scale down to where the team is at, like skill and physical development wise, and then kind of just work from there.
I saw you post a video of you doing the lat pullover, and I instantly thought, and I was like, that'd be great for my swim team. But you just brought up an extremely great point where it becomes about where are they developmentally in the weight room, because sometimes I struggle with high schoolers in particular because it's just like they do a lot of the same stuff and I try to program it ever so slightly different that they don't really notice that they're doing the same stuff, but I guess I just outed myself. But
Oh yeah.
because it's just like you can't really do a chin up, like we can't really do a bunch of extra stuff until you can nail these movements.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. Are you talking like from swim to rugby or something like that? Talking movement wise.
Like movement wise, so because like I'm working with a bunch of high school athletes from like every single sport. So in the fall I had all our fall athletes. In the winter now I'm dealing with basketball, um indoor, what else do we got? We have swim, Nordic, alpine. So it was all of these different sports. So I was like, you really all kind of need the same basic things at this point, but how can I make it a little bit different? That way the coaches think it's sport specific, and then the athletes feel like, yeah, like this is for me and my sport. It's not just some general workout.
Yeah, exactly. So like um all every sport group that I have by now I'm fairly positive between all these different programs. We've all squatted, we've all bench pressed, we've all done pull up or chin up variations, we've all done deadlift variations. I think the fun part is like right now, I posted something on it. I think it was on my story a week ago or so. The style of deadlifting we're doing with swim is completely different from lacrosse. We might get there or play with it in the same way, but we're doing like repeated effort deadlifts to mimic an underwater kick. After the guys push off the wall, they stay underwater, they kick maybe 4 or 5 times before they come up to the surface. And then if they're freestyle, they start going right, left, or breaststroke, it turns into something else. But um, that style of repeated effort deadlift, track's not doing, dive's not doing, because they're mostly, well, track out of the blocks, single effort, one big push, and then they go dive, single effort for the most part, after their hurdle step before they get up in the air. Lacrosse, I mean, deadlifting for lacrosse is more of like a posterior development thing for me versus a like a 1 rep max starting strength type of thing, because usually everything they do is off of a a jog or a sprint. So um, yeah, like everybody does the same stuff, but do it a little bit differently.
That you just, I mean, you nailed it, right? Like that's what it is. I used to hate, like I used to want like that sport specific like as an athlete, and then as the more I learned about strength conditioning I was like, oh wow, there really is no, like you can tweak things, but I'm like there's nothing more sport specific than playing your sport.
Mm-hmm. Same goes for conditioning.
Yes. um let's dive into that then. Do you deal with a lot of like conditioning, or do you program that in, or how do you like to handle that? Because I get kids all the time being like, I gotta improve my conditioning. And I'm just like, I think you do, but not in the way that you think you do.
Yeah, it's different with every sport that I have currently. Track, I don't do any of their conditioning. Some days, whether it's like early on, we have our strength day in the week, strength day, speed day, moderate day. Um, Kind of on our speed day, we'll do a little more um, in our accessory work. We'll kind of cut the rest down, make sure we're moving through that block quickly. Call that some kind of metabolic work. Swim, don't really, ever since like the third or fourth week of school, uh, I haven't done much of their conditioning just because their yardage is crazy in the pool, which is a good thing for them. I'm not complaining about that. That's where it should be. Um, Dive, do a little bit of conditioning once or twice a week. They need it. It's kind of like a not something everybody would think about unless you're a diver or a dive coach, but like just the repeated efforts, climbing up the ladder, going off the board. If you have a tower day, if you know what that is, or they go from the 5 meter to the 10 meter towers, like they have to take the stairs every time. So like got to kind of be in good shape if you want to repeat high level execute or high level efforts executed really well for a long tower practice. So
I never even thought about that. That makes so much sense.
yeah, and then there's the mental stamina too that comes from being in shape. Like if you're in shape, everything else takes less of a toll on you. So I think the biggest one though for me is lacrosse. Like if you're not fit, you have no chance. And you would know this from rugby too. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, coming from Texas, I honestly did not know that much about lacrosse until I got here. Well, once I got the job and I was told like lacrosse, swim, dive, track, I was like, oh, I gotta guess I gotta dive into lacrosse a little bit. But like, do you know much about lacrosse, like how the sports played and whatnot? But
I know somewhat. I also have to dive a little bit deeper into it because we're big soccer and lacrosse town.
yeah, okay. So this term called riding, like transitioning between offense and defense,
Hmm.
it at least 100-yard field from goal to goal, and the midfielders got to work, attack, you got to work, got to do all the transitioning, even though you can only put a certain number of players in each third of the field. But like if you're not in shape, you got no chance. Um, so coming from the head coach, which I cannot blame her, we are very fitness based. Strength kind of comes second, which is totally fine as long as we can develop some to stay healthy and then get a little faster. Um, but we run all kinds of like 300-yard shuttles and 100-yard repeat efforts, and it all kind of makes sense. I was kind of like, golly, why do we have to do this many 100-yard runs? And then I like watched some of their fall ball games because there's a spring sport, and I was like, dang, okay, that makes sense. Like there's multiple girls running from goal to goal in transition, and then they do it again, and then they do it again. So I was like, oh, well, we do a lot of stuff like that. Whether it's in the weight room right now, if there's circuits, we're getting back to running our 300s and 100s at the like yardage and work to rest that we've been in the fall. So that's kind of college conditioning for the sports that I've got right now, and I'm sure it may change if I was at Ohio State. So
Yeah.
it's kind of coach driven, based on what they want and feel is important, or if they just say like I trust you, do your thing, then it's kind of just whatever I feel like is best.
With the current teams you have right now, do you have a lot of trust with the coaches and the players? Like, are they bought in, I guess, for the lack of a better word?
Yeah, for the most part, I think I'm in a really good place where, uh, and just based off of what I've learned from the previous like strength coaches who have had these teams before me, that um, they're happy with what's going down. Like lacrosse in the fall, we made a ton of great progress. Now we're just kind of shaking off a little bit of the winter break and following some like conditioning protocols, getting back to training, um, which everybody wants to go full blown, go like second week. Like we did this in the fall, why can't we do this now? Um, but lacrosse, we're in a good spot. Like swim and dive, we're in a good spot. I think the coaches are happy. And then track, same thing. They just came off their second indoor meet of the indoor season. So that trust and buy-in kind of comes from like for the coach, it comes from communicating with them, like kind of sharing why you're doing what you're doing in your program with them, sharing some progress that you see objectively with numbers or subjectively with like technique, the what's it called? I get it weekly. The injury report. There's fewer names on the injury report. Um, then with the athletes, it's having conversations with them. Um, like this last weekend, we had a swim meet at home and a track meet away. It's like having conversations like, oh, how'd you swim? How'd you run? How do you feel like what we're doing is helping you at the end of the fall semester, I gave out these little feedback sheets, like getting information on what did you like, what did you not like, what did you feel like helped you the most this fall, what do you feel like we should do more of. So different things like that. And then obviously them seeing progress and hopefully staying healthy in the process all kind of leads to increased buy-in and just making everybody happy. So that's kind of that.
No, that's great. Let's kind of finish up and talk about the athlete because Cincinnati D1.
Yeah, we're in the American Conference, going to the Big 12 next fall.
Oh wow, that's awesome. What makes a successful D1 athlete in your eyes?
Ooh, man. Well, it's tough because I was not one, but uh, there's a saying that I'm sure you've heard it: "The success leaves clues." Saying.
Yep.
Uh, so if you were to walk into a college setting or a D1 setting, and I wouldn't even cut it just to D1 athletes because there's successful athletes at every level. It's all kind of relative, and some work harder, work better, and put more into it than others. Some are just very blessed and genetically blessed to where you cannot have the same work ethic and still be really good. But for me, the most successful ones I see, they come in, at least with my work with them, they come in, they don't waste time. Like if they're there 10 minutes early, they're not sitting on the wall waiting for me to tell them like, okay, it's time to start our warm up. They're going to grab a lacrosse ball or a foam roller and do something for their body. They're the first ones to the fuel station, the little like protein shake snack stand that we have. First ones there, post practice, post lift, pre lift. They're the ones that ask questions like coach, how does this look, or like what else can I do. They're the ones that kind of are leaders in the weight room as far as like getting everybody rolling, holding other teammates accountable. um, I think those are the first things that come to mind when I think about the most successful ones and some athletes that I'm working with right now.
When I hear you say that, it makes me think of the word ownership. And so they have the know-how to be like, this is on me, and I have to do the little things and the extra stuff and take ownership of my sports journey if I want to go further or just make the most of out of what they've got.
Yeah, definitely. I've worked with athletes on both ends where like every where they're currently at has been all of them. Like everything that they've done to get to that point is um, kind of on them. And I've worked with athletes that don't have that type of like success story to where they've just kind of got where they are because they were gifted. But definitely the ones that take ownership of their training, their recovery, their eating habits, their sleep habits, those are definitely the ones that will take whatever they've got farther. So that definitely is a good word to put in with them.
Great stuff, Mikey. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast. I know I'm going to call you Mikey from now on. I just can't. I'll put all of your stuff in the show notes. Appreciate you coming on. And well, that's going to be it for the podcast. So if you guys want to do the whole thing, like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. This one will actually be going live on today's the 18th, the 20th. So it'll be this Friday. And then it'll be great. And maybe we'll have you back on.
Yeah, I'd love to. It's been fun.
Alrighty. Peace out.